Hi, welcome to Wargame Realm. In this video I'll be showing you how to make a desert basis for the Grav Outriders that I've made in previous video, but you can use this tutorial for any minis you want. So, I started with a Outrider base. I added peg from the PVC plastic pipe. You can use anything you want, I just didn't have anything on hand. Probably brass rod would be a better choice. For landscaping of the base, I'll be using epoxy putty milliput. You can use whichever variant you want. Also, you can use any air drying clay and stuff like that. For the element of interest of the base, I'll be using 3D printed parts from Epic Basing. For this project, I'll be using hoodoo rocks and succulents. You can buy either printed ones or STL files on the Epic Basing site. For scenic basing, I usually follow like rule to have 3 layers of base. So we have the background that is behind the miniature, the underneath, so beneath the legs, beneath the jet bike, something that is not visible but can have some interest, and the foreground where you have you can put smaller pieces not to hide your mini, but also to put some places of interest. So in this case, I picked a bigger piece as a background that will be on the diagonal back of the bike base, and I will start to sculpt everything around it. Working in this way with bases is very good because it gives the mini more dynamic, more realism. Because if you put a flat base, the main point of interest is the mini. Base is just a base. But here you can tell more of a story. So yeah, I have three bikers that are traversing between some kind of desert rocks over the dried broken earth. So with the epoxy putty, you need to pick 2 equal parts of both pieces, the same as with green stuff or any other thing. If you use air drying clay, just apply it without anything. Here, mix both parts equally and thoroughly until you get cohesive and one-colored even putty. It takes a few minutes. I will cut that part. You can use whichever milliput you want. I have a leftover of the black one, but in this case it doesn't matter which one it is. When you have the putty mixed and it's pliable, I'm making little sausages rolls around the terrain piece. In case of this basis, I want to have like the sand part will be raised on the places where I put milliput, and in the middle, in between of those raised areas, I will put the crackle paint just to have like visual effect of dried rivers, creeks, or stuff like that. When working with the milliput, I highly recommend to use water and damp your fingers within it, so it becomes more pliable and don't stick to your hands. I usually use my hands to give it the rough texture and size, and use the sculpting tool to push it into the main terrain piece. Now, when I have the main structure of the land, I start attaching the smaller pieces, so it's called, I think, landscapers in the Epic Basing terminology. So these are the flat parts that represent the rock that is burrowed and is just a flat piece. For just walking foot miniatures, you can use those as to put the mini like on it, to like GW's tactical rocks. And besides that, you have the high sticking pieces that go around the mini. This is nice to put some of those around because those blend well with the ground. So you can overlap sand, earth texture, grass on them, and it looks like it's a cohesive part of the environment, not just a random rocks sticking out. So, when attaching the bigger standing out pieces, always try to compare your mini to the base, so you're not ending up with some weird placement. In this case, I wanted it to look like they're traversing in between some kind of rock canyons, but not hitting it, because it would break the immersion and look of the base. And I don't want, like, here's the example, it was too close, I needed to move back because it would look like he would hit it with his graph plate, but when I position him not directly like aligned with the base, but going in some diagonal way, it looks much better. For the pieces that you stick into the epoxy putty, you don't need to glue them. You just stick them in, then using sculpting tool, sculpt the terrain around it to make it adhere. And later, when you will use the texture paints over it, it will strengthen the bond and it won't go anywhere. But if you're scared about that, you still can use a bit of super glue underneath to make it stronger. Here you can see that I'm putting the bigger rocks sticking out of the sand to, I don't know, the sand will be like some dunes that cover up some rocky places, and the recessed area will be crackled, I don't know, riverbed, creek, just dry earth. So I take piece by piece, want to make it look like they're natural, not like put too much of them, so all other terrain would show around them, but make the base interesting. I still try to add some additional landscapers around the bigger rocks. Here you can see, like, yeah, again I'm comparing this took too much space, so I picked smaller one, and just I don't know, use your imagination, try to think what looks real, what's not obstructing the mini, but what will bring the interest of the base higher. Here, yeah, as you see, I put another piece just using the sculpting tool. I take some putty to go around it so it looks covered with the sand. It will look much more clearer, better when it's painted, because now you just see some black putty and black base with some like rocks. Okay, when you think it's enough, like of the main terrain piece, like I usually use some kind of rock and some kind of vegetation for the like medium difficulty base, not to get too much of it. So here I see that like this landscaper would fit nicely in the corner of the base. If it's not touching too much of the putty, just go around it with super glue. Yep, there are some flow issue, but just like when you have all the main terrain features placed, proceed to the second one that will be additional and will be making some point of interest. I will be using Succulents, also from Epic Basing. I like them for the dry, arid environments to add some color. I'll be placing them usually in between the hood rocks. Usually in the files from the Epic Basing you have the big pieces and the small one. The idea behind that is that in nature, like plants never shown like singular plant and nothing around it. Usually it's a bigger plant and some seeds fall around it, and there are growing smaller versions of the same plant. So here the idea is that you place a big plant in the center and use the smaller fillers, like little plants all around it, to show that like it's growing and it's expanding. Here I want to have like a lot of it, because green plants will contrast nice with red blood angels, and it will give a lot of like contrast to the dry, arid earth. The rocks also will be some kind of tone of red. So again, green additions will be nice. Always remember to like use these small pieces to add contrast to the base. Of course, like there are some cases you want to do thematic base that is like, I don't know, the creek bases that are dark, grim, nothing interesting, but I still usually like to add some kind of interesting pieces that will break the monotony of the whole base. There are many arguments that 40k, it's grimdark, it should be blah blah blah, but yeah, I paint minis so they look nice, and yeah. Here I didn't have enough of the small succulents, so I'm using the top of the flowers from the succulents to add some little ones around the bigger clumps. And here you can use, this is the same rule for using tufts, like place big patches in the middle and then add a little smaller around it, so like the grass is spreading. So when you're happy with your base, just make final check if the mini fits well and proceed with other bases that you have to that step. Here is an example of another one. This guy will be like going up over some mound, behind him a lot of crackled desert. And the last one is the sergeant with much bigger rocks behind him. He will be like traversing around it while shooting his bolt pistol. So that's all of the bases ready for applying the texture paints. So additionally, I thought it would be a nice touch to add some skulls in the dried part of the desert. It's 40k, you need to have skulls on the bases, so I attached some of the Citadel skulls on the base. And now I proceed to apply diorama effects from Vallejo. I use desert sand, but you can use any other color because I still will be base coating it in the color I want. Here I'm using just an old brush to apply it. You can use bigger one. In this case, I think the succulents could be glued after applying the texture paint, but with a small brush you can go around it. Just be careful not to mess up the printed parts. If you get over it with some paint, just dampen your brush in water, and with like wet brush just clean off the excess of the stuff. Now, using a PVA glue, take some of it. It doesn't have to be PVA, any wood glue will work. Just dilute it until it's in the consistency of, I don't know, milk. Dilute it heavily and paint it over the area you want to put the crackling paint, because in my experience it helps the crackling paint to crack evenly and nice. Here you can see I've done it on all bases, it is dried, it gives the smooth area for the crackles to create. You can also use gloss varnish for that. So, next step, use any crackle paint from GW, the even one. I use Martian Ironearth. Using sculpting tool, I apply it on the recessed area that is left on the base that I covered with PVA glue. Just smoothen it out over the whole area. You can use brush, you can use sculpting tool. Just make sure to make it as even as possible. We want to have like nice even cracks. Just make the layer heavy so the cracks are nice and visible. So yeah, here you can see all of the bases are dried. The crackles are nice, like big gaps between the pieces. You can cover it in watered down PVA so the crackles won't fall out, but a good layer of base coat will do the job. I base coated them with Zandri Dust, and now I proceed to washes. First, starting with Seraphim Sepia, I apply it all over the sand parts. I want the sands to be warm, yellowy, not like cold and dark. That's why the choice of the color. Then, using Agrax Earthshade, I shade the crackled part. It will be colder, more dry, less vibrant. Next, using Squig Orange, apply all over the rocky parts of the base. I want the rocks to be red, like some kind of, maybe not alien planet, but with the red hue to complement the red of the Blood Angels. So, just using medium brush, apply it all over the rocky parts. You don't have to be very precise, just make sure not to go over the sand very much. After that, apply nice solid coat of Carroburg Crimson all over the rocks. It will deepen the red color, which we'll bring out later with drybrush. As with all washes, just make sure it doesn't pool on the bottom of the pieces. And after this step, leave the base to dry. I did it like overnight just to be sure it is dry in every pieces, not to mess the dry brushing step, which will start now. Using Zandri Dust, I bring back all of the colors all over the base using big dry brush. It can be heavy or overbrush. Maybe on the rocks do it a little gentler. Now, using Flash Gitz Yellow, I apply a little lighter dry brush all over the earth, the sand pieces, the succulents, and the rocks, like partially, not to be all over them. Then, using Ushabti Bone, I apply the last dry brush all over the sand and the rock pieces to bring up the details, to blend them more together. After that, I add a bit more of just clean Ushabti Bone without the yellow paint all over the crackled paint, and Wraithbone to pick up all of the details of the crackled earth and the succulents. As a next step, using just a white paint, apply light dry brush all over the succulents. This gives you all of the dry brush process to finish. Then, using Ushabti Bone, pick up highlights of the bones, skulls, and everything like that. After that, take Wraithbone, again, highlight just the edges of the bones, and finally, using some white paint, mix it with Wraithbone on, apply it just as it is. Pick up just the most raised edges. We want the bones to look like whitened over the time in the desert. After that, using Karandras Green contrast paint, cover the dry brushed succulents with the paint. This will give quick, nice effect of the vibrant green plants around the rocks. Try not to go over the sand, not to mess up your previous work. Yeah. After that, most of the base is ready. For the finishing touches, take Black Legion paint or any black paint you want and paint the trim of the base. I also painted the peg for the Outrider, but if you have the transparent ones, you can leave them transparent, but I prefer painted black. Then I remembered about the flowers on the succulents. I painted them with Wraithbone. Then I highlighted them with white paint to bring up the top of the flowers, and using Shyish Purple I gave them nice purple look. And that was the last thing for the base. As a last step, also you can apply matte varnish to secure your job, and here are all of the 3 Outrider bases ready. As you can see, it is nice contrast between warm and cold on the crackle, the succulents with some contrast of the flowers and the red rocks. These are nice, pretty simple bases that can give very interesting story to your army. In the next video, I'll be covering painting the Outriders for the bases. So, thank you for watching and see you in the next video.